Guys, welcome to the Everyday Warrior podcast. I'm joined by Nick Palmisciano. I got it.
I mean, it was close.
It was close. Go ahead.
Palmisciano.
I'm going to work on that. That's just it's an insult to Italians.
It's all right.
My grandparents are rolling in their graves.
I mean, the world insults Italians all the time.
Dude, yeah, they're easy.
You know, where's the Italian president? That's what I want to know.
When is the last Italian? Have we ever had one?
No.
Mm.
No Italian presidents.
That is.
And we talk about diversity, Jack. Jack likes to make fun of Italians.
I consider it safe racism. As a white guy, I can make fun of all the different types of whites, even if I'm not that kind of white. It's still safe to me to do that racism. So Italians are fair game.
So, well, and we haven't introduced you, Jack Mandaville, French from Minnesota. Yeah. I'd say the French are pretty easy game as well.
Oh, 100%, yeah. I'm just a standard white guy.
Especially after the Olympics. That opening, oh, good
it
Lord.
Was something else.
Yeah, there were some good parts about it. And then they went.
It was a lot.
Yeah.
I am surprised, though, people were surprised by it because it's like, that's what the French do.
The French do that. I
just didn't understand the menage a trois scene where it fit in. It was just so, I'm like, okay. And then for all the very religious people, the Last Supper was.
Yeah. Which I've heard differing things where, and it makes sense. It was more inspired by Greek history than it was by the Last Supper.
Yeah, not a way to start off
it was a rough start.
The Olympic Games, which is there to honor the athlete.
The whole world is watching, France.
At least some of them apologize. They're like, yeah, we're sorry about that. We're sorry. Well, guys, you've got, and we'll dive into it, but you've got Office Joe coming out. It's been about 1.5 years in the works.
Yep.
Spin off of The Office, but it's like the veteran version.
It's shot in the same style. A guy gets out of the military, drives across the country just in time to start his job as a graphic designer in a boutique marketing firm. Hilarity ensues. Basically, that's the premise of the whole thing.
And I'm going to assume he's got to learn that his dry sense of humor is just not welcomed in the new environment.
He has all kinds of problems, right? He doesn't understand why people don't show up on time, why they don't do their work, why they don't like his direct feedback. All of the things that we grow accustomed to in the military, his coworkers really don't care about at all.
Well, I'm going to dive into you guys. I've done my research. I mean, we've got a pedigree over here. Is he wearing the ring?
No.
I've known him for 12, 13 years, never seen him with that ring.
Good. I love that. But hey, West Point is, I've got a rule that West Point sort of rules the world. Like,
I wish that were the case.
It seems like every NBA program, like Stanford, UT, I know Duke, you guys were like the highest numbers percentage of veterans. But I mean, bro, what West Point is
it's a weird place, man.
And you actually have to study.
You do. And even the smart kids have to study because they overwhelm me with, a typical semester's like 35 credit hours. I mean, it's gross.
On top of all the other
stuff. Yeah.
You could have just went to Arizona State and got some HPV out of it.
Is that where you went, Jack?
No, I'm a community college kind of guy.
Good, good. We were just talking about how
Jack's one of the smartest people I've ever met.
Oh, yeah, you can tell.
Honestly.
Well read, I'm assuming.
Very well read.
Try to be. Yeah.
It's interesting. We just wrote about it because actually we're hosting a series on Tim this whole week on the Everyday Warrior Nation on Sports Illustrated. And actually it wasn't him. It was another Army guy who you may know, Charlie Felker. Does that name ring a bell?
Sure.
Okay. I call him the Gentle Giant. He's like 6'3", just the sweetest man you'll ever meet. Lethal on the battlefield. He was with the 75th Ranger Regiment. But, very similar path to you, West Point, infantry, and then went and got his MBA. And he's like, I think the MBA was a waste of time.
That's honestly how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know about how you felt about yours.
Just if I knew, and I knew I was going into entrepreneurship pretty quick, I wish like they had taught me about taxation and structure rather than.
Yes. It's not like I didn't value the friendships there. Yeah. I met some great, talented people, but an MBA teaches you how to work at a Fortune 500 company.
Exactly.
It does not teach you any of the things that you need for entrepreneurship. And I know there are some programs maybe that are more tailored, But yeah, that was a lot of money for something that I really didn't use. My time in Fortune 100 was about 4 years, and for 3.5 of those years, I was working on my side project, which was Ranger Up. So, I wasn't.
And you were working for John Deere.
I was working for John Deere.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing where I knew I wasn't a corporate guy, because they were great mission. Their mission is to feed the world. Great Midwestern people. There wasn't a lot of, there's politics in any organization, but they weren't like untrustworthy like you hear some people working out of New York or LA or whatever. It wasn't that. And they paid me really well.
A cool fact about the John Deere thing with Nick is that was right around when you were working, it was around the time you started seeing John Deere becoming like trendy urban wear and John Deere hats, and he was the licensing guy.
Yeah,
no kidding.
That was my gig. So this guy Dean Hamke, who's a stud, he was an entrepreneur and got tired of it, sold his business, and then but he had like a big lawn care kind of business, and John Deere picked him up when they were moving into Lowe's and Home Depot and stuff. So he and I were tight. And this woman, Molly Reddish, got hired. She had worked for like Nike and stuff. And the three of us were kind of like the licensing team. So, we just started writing letters and sending hats and stuff. So when you saw, the hat show up on Punk'd, like that was us, I wrote a letter and sent a bunch of stuff to David Letterman.
I read that.
And David Letterman did this whole showcase of John Deere toys on his show, and he used to have this bear that showed up, a guy in a bear suit, put on a John Deere T-shirt, and I got in trouble for that. I got in trouble. I got a talking to because I did all this without asking anyone. I was just like freewheeling, sending merch out, writing letters, and didn't even think. And this is, like they were right. I'm not saying I was right, but all of a sudden, John Deere merch is on David Letterman, and I didn't clear it with anyone.
Some kid in LA from West LA is now wearing John Deere merch to the beach.
You showed initiative. You would think, hey, hopefully they pat you on the back. However,
no, it was just like you could, also the letter I wrote. And Jack knows my writing. I went for it. Like I made it funny so that they'd appreciate it. And it was like, you went way too far with this, and this could have really backfired. But they're right. Like, hey, when you're at the time, they're way bigger now, but at the time they were a $30 billion business. It's not worth it to take a risk on the David Letterman show. It's just not worth it.
Before we get to Ranger Up, Jack, Minnesota.
You betcha. Yeah.
You betcha. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
From up north up there.
Great governor. I'm joking. We won't go there. We won't go there. But community college.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I actually did go to community college up there. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
And then from there, what?
I flew the coop at 18. I did 4 years in the Marines, and then basically ended up in Texas.
Jack got shot in the Marines.
I did. I got shot, to clarify, on Camp Pendleton from a negligent discharge. So during that time frame...
I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, it happens, during that time frame, like, our battalion's parking lot was, like, filled with Purple Heart license plates, and I was, like, the only guy in the battalion with a gunshot wound and no Purple Heart. So they don't give it for training accidents. So.
What years in the Marine Corps?
02 to 06.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was 98 to 03.
Were you a West Coast guy?
West Coast guy, Pendleton, Camp Margarita.
Oh, first recon.
Yes.
Yeah. I was in LAR, so not quite recon.
No, you guys you wore the black PT gear with the...
No, we wouldn't have dared. That's stolen valor right there.
You got to tell the story, though. How did you get shot?
Jack only steals valor from the Air Force.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I've been doing stolen valor for about 4 years now, openly. Been stealing Air Force, but that's a whole different thing. No, I got shot in SOI, actually. We were cleaning weapons in the armory. It was a Friday, and that was back in those days where those SOI instructors, it wasn't like the be-billet, sought-after job like it is now. It's like, this E4's got 6 months left. Let's go have them babysit 500 privates.
SOI was the worst school I ever attended. It was, it was not the...
It was pointless.
It was not the cream of the crop.
No.
I was not impressed by the instructors. Just was told I was stupid every day.
Yeah.
And couldn't wait to get out of there.
It's almost like you can go straight from boot camp to the fleet and just get trained while you're in the fleet.
OJT.
Yeah.
Powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, that same time period as you, like, they didn't care back then. Now they care. It could be different. So,
yeah. What'd you do when you get out? When you got out?
I got out. No, it's odd jobs, and I went to school, odd jobs. Worked in the last real big boy job that I had was in the oil field, and then my goal was to always be creative professionally, and Nick gave me my first full time creative paycheck. So, and it's just been
was that a Ranger Up?
Yep, Ranger Up.
Yeah.
Do you still own Ranger Up?
I still have an interest in it, but I have no control over it, and
massive brand though. I mean, you guys topped 100 million in how many years?
I don't know how long it took to get that, but we were an 8-figure business at the end on an annual basis. Like, it was a pretty good company.
That's ridiculous, dude.
Yeah.
Like, overachiever over here.
Started from a hobby, and Jack was a huge part in it. Tim Kennedy was a huge part in it. There was people that kind of left their mark on, what the brand was. But we were definitely the first to kind of create content in the veteran space, and
sell shirts online.
Yeah.
I do want to get back to that point to applaud you guys, but I just spoke with a guy that runs a B2C. Mm-hmm. He owns his own apparel company, but he said the apparel business right now, like, it's just been, consumer spending's down for obvious reasons, but he was saying that some companies, like 90% decrease in revenue.
Oh, sure.
He's like, they're shutting down. People are just shuttering, not even trying to sell or selling for pennies on the dollar. Mm-hmm. It's a rough go right now.
Yeah, I don't doubt that.
Yeah.
I don't doubt that. I think whenever people are nervous about the economy, there are studies that show this over and over again. They shift spending to needs, and they also shift spending to, hey, I'm going to just do all my shopping at Walmart or Amazon or, whatever's easy. You don't go to many weird websites when you're not sure, how healthy the economy is going to be. And then the added bonus of literally every time there is an election, spending drops 30 to 40% prior to the election, waiting to see what happens. But then after the election, no matter what happens, there's always a massive spike in sales.
We're 14 days from election day. Americans vote with their wallet. I think this one's in the can, and we're on Sports Illustrated, so you got to be very careful.
Well, I'm going to write in Shohei Ohtani for president, so I want to be very clear about that.
Yes.
You know where I stand politically.
You guys really did almost create a genre of content. I mean, you guys, the BRCC guys, mm-hmm. I mean, people have tried to replicate that model, but you guys really just set the path for a lot of companies today. And I mean, even Range 15 must have been a huge gamble and undertaking.
Still, we talk about this a lot. Still one of the proudest moments of my life to see that the first audience at Fort Bragg watch Range 15. Like, that was such a big moment, because we put 2.5 years into that, and there was no guarantee that we were even going to be able to do it. It started with us going to Hollywood. Jared and I pitched a bunch of people, and everyone laughed at us. The one person that was kind of interested was like, we'll do this, but instead of an ensemble, it'll be Jean-Claude Van Damme. And we're like, that's absolutely not what we're trying to do here. And then, so then we're like, all right, we're going to raise the money ourselves. So, Jared was a huge fan of Ross Patterson, And he reached out to Ross and said, hey, would you direct this? And Ross was like, well, how are you going to get the money? And we're going to go to Indiegogo. And he was like, man, like, if you raise it, I'll do it. But I gotta be honest with you. You're not going to do it. No one ever raises. So then we raised all the money we needed in 24 hours and went on to raise about 1.5 million. And then all of a sudden it was like, well, this is really going to happen. And then it was like, well, no A-lister is going to say yes to this. And I was like, well, I'm going to write a letter to William Shatner. And Ross was like, you know, and he's a risk taker. So him saying this, you know, he's like, hey, man, like no actor is going to care about, you know, a letter. And I was like, well, it doesn't hurt to try. So then Shatner got the letter and liked it. He was like, yeah, I'll do it. And then once he was on, then Sean Astin reached out to us. And then it just became this thing where it was like the cool thing to be a part of. And we got all these great, you know, talented people that kind of came in and did cameos. And then, you know, we all, you know, met with you know, Matt Best leading the way, marketed this thing as hard as we've ever marketed anything in our lives. And we ended up being the only independent film ever to hit #1 on Amazon.
My biggest takeaway from that entire time period was how much craft food can eat up a budget.
Oh my God. I'm going to let you tell the story of the one guy that ate more craft services.
Oh, you want to hear a fun story? He's in jail right now. It was a lot funner a couple years ago before we found out he was.
It's less funny now.
Less funny now, but Ron Jeremy, we wrapped him around noon, and like an hour later, when we broke for lunch, he came out of his trailer. The guy stuck around for free food and loaded like 4 plates up and just left. So, well, that's a long story short.
So craft services are like $75 to $100 a plate. And we thought Ron Jeremy was sticking around because he had such a good time and he was having fun. And then we realized, I mean, he just kept getting in line, getting in line, kept eating. And we're like, oh my God, this dude ate like $800. And Jack was sitting there like taking pictures the whole time as he was.
Yeah, just kept getting back in that line, eating up that budget.
I'm shocked that I didn't even know that Ron Jeremy's in jail now.
Yeah, he, you know, he's a pervert, sounds like. Yeah.
It probably goes with the industry.
Yeah.
A bit.
Yeah. Not all of them are, I mean, he was gropey. He was gropey off the job, it sounds like. Yeah.
I mean, storied career though.
Yeah. Now he's on the receiving end. Now, yeah.
Probably not though. I mean, you think?
I'm sure he's loving it.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's loving it. Oh.
Should you have briefed me before I opened my mouth on what I can and can't say?
No, we are safe. We're amongst veterans here in Sports Illustrated.
And Sports Illustrated.
Dude, that one that had to be, I'm sure that was just, it destroyed you in terms of the amount of work, but with the cat, and you guys had the who's who of veteran entrepreneurs that just have a massive following. And that must have been fun as hell.
Well, then at that time, Luttrell was the hottest thing in Hollywood. Yeah. Because that's right around the Lone Survivor period.
Gotcha.
So when Luttrell signed up too, like all these Hollywood people who loved Lone Survivor, that really legitimized it.
And he was such a good sport because when we reached out to him, he was like, yeah, I'll absolutely do it. What do you want me to do? And the first thing that came to mind was, hey, we want to kill you first.
Yeah.
And he was like, that's amazing. But then he added, but I can't do that to my SEAL brothers. So even though you kill me first, I need to come back at some point. And we're like, done. So that allowed us to kill. He was the first casualty in the whole movie. And Matt gets to utter the line, looks like we're the lone survivors now.
I remember that.
But then right at the end when we're all getting our medals from the president, he just walks in and gets a medal. And we're like, where the hell did you come from? You know? So, yeah.
It's still available on Amazon, correct?
Yeah, it's on Amazon Prime. Yep.
Okay. So if people want to go watch it, Amazon is...
Yeah, and please do. You know, we're talking now about what do we need to do because we're at the 8-year mark.
When COVID happened...
Yep.
And I lost like 70% of my work during that period. there was still a little bit of money coming in on those range 15 checks, and it wasn't a lot, but I'm like, oh God, I needed this so bad. I'm so glad I did this indie movie 5 years ago.
Tried to restoke the marketing. Hey,
Yeah.
go watch it if you're bored at home.
Yeah.
Anytime people watch Range 15 on Prime, we get like a few pennies. So
Good.
you know.
Good. Well, guys, before we get into to Office Joe and the other work, I mean, one, I know you're passionate. You're part of Save Our Allies.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have done some amazing work. One with the Afghanistan withdrawal. I think, what was the number? 12,000 people?
12,000 people. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. That was, you know, there's a lot of talk about the negative things that veterans sometimes do. You know, we were talking about this before the show started. Kind of there's a tendency to eat our own and criticize each other a little bit too much and all those kinds of things. But the fall of Afghanistan was the one time in my life where I was supremely proud of the entire veteran community. Like, I don't think there is anybody, and I mean from any generation, because there were Vietnam veterans that were helping, that wasn't involved in trying to save as many Afghans as possible. Whether it was, you know, a dude sitting on his couch with an Excel spreadsheet, like talking to his buddies and sending people, you know, to, you know, folks on the ground, like, hey, look out for this guy. Or it was guys like Scott Mann and Pineapple Express, you know, kind of building, you know, a network with the special operators that were deployed there to, you know, to make sure that they got people out, you know, or it was, you know, people like us or Argo that were lucky enough to, you know, through happenstance and relationships be on the ground. I think everybody worked as hard as they could. So like I've often said, I've never been, you know, prouder of Americans and less proud of my country at the same time. But what happened was, you know, there was a guy by the name of Joe Robert, Recon Marine, and he served with this guy, Dan, goes by the moniker Santa Six. Dan served with Chad Robichaud, and Joe grew up with, you know, going to school with and around the royal family in the Emirates. So he reached out and said, hey, could we land planes here? Would that be okay? And UAE, I will always be thankful for. They came back and said, not only can you land planes, we're going to give you a couple of planes, and we're going to give you a place to put people while they get processed into, you know, to the States. And the two planes they gave us were C-17s. Damn. So all of a sudden, I mean, and that's
that we probably gave them.
Sure, but
they bought them.
But I mean, you know, right there was our ability to do things that other people couldn't. That's pure happenstance and luck, you know. And then it was a matter of, you know, getting clearances and
that part.
Well, and enter Sarah Verardo, who, you know, is another founding member of Save Our Allies. She's, you know, she is incredibly connected, you know, to the you know, the DC apparatus, and she was able to, you know, connect us to, you know, General Milley, to the State Department, to a bunch of people that were able to clear very quickly. So we ended up with this, you know, we had this massive list of people, but they were going, you know, it was a churn where things were coming back within hours with clearances, which is unheard of. And so, you know, without Joe Robert, without Sarah, you know, and then, you know, Tim and I had the ability, you know, to very quickly put mechanisms in place to raise money, you know, through our companies. And so while we were flying, you know, we literally had, you know, my wife, you know, members of his team building out things so that, you know, we could raise money for anything else that we needed. And so it was just this, we just happened to have this group of people that had these skills that all ended up in the same place. And then we get there, and there's a couple of gentlemen. I don't know. He varies whether he wants to be public, so I'll just call him Sean G. Another gentleman, Sea Spray, and those two guys and Tim Kennedy, along with some incredible Air Force pararescue men, link up and went to work, and all of the rescue type stuff they were doing. The rest of us were loading planes, building target packages, and and everybody just worked as hard as possible for 10 days. And then, we had 12,000 people we were able to get out. We also had 19,000 people on the list that we didn't. And so that is where Save Our Allies was born. It was then a situation where, okay, well, this fight's not over, so, where do we go? And that's led to, I've spent months in Pakistan, UAE, safe houses, all kinds of stuff. I mean, I'm a marketing dude. I'm a middle-aged dad. Like, this was not my vision for these years of my life. And I say it all the time. I'm not cool now. I wasn't that cool back then. And, but sometimes like things get put in front of you, and you either say yes or you say no. And if you say no, then the question is who's going to do it. And that's kind of all of the veterans involved in Afghanistan, but in Save Our Allies, like, it's a bunch of people that said, well, I can help, so I'm going to help. And it doesn't necessarily mean, you want Tim Kennedy, but sometimes you get Jack Mandaville and Nick Palmisciano. You know what I'm saying? So.
I wasn't invited for that Save Our Allies party.
I know, but we would have taken you.
Jack, naturally, I would think they want a Marine on the manifest.
I just stick to comedy and send people to Nick when they can help. Yeah.
What was the flash to bang on that? What I mean by that is, when did you start the planning for the withdrawal? Was this like days before, 30 days before?
No, Tim and I were sitting in Austin, literally mapping out the final chapter of his book. That's literally what we were doing. We were mapping out the final chapter of Scars and Stripes. And Sarah Verardo called me, and literally at the same time, Tim's phone rang, and it was Chad Robichaud. Obviously, they had been talking, and they were planning this. She's like, I need you to go to Afghanistan. And I was like, did you accidentally call the wrong person? Because, I'm mid-40s. And she's like, no, like, I need you to go. Like, we're not looking for dudes that are trying to, get in one more fight. We're looking for people that are going to be calm and try to solve problems. And, and I was like, all right, let me ask my wife. And I called my wife, and she, she's like, this is the worst thing I've ever seen. I can't do anything about it, and I hate that, but you can, so you need to go. I was like, you really don't like me that much. That's actually what I said.
She said, how's your life insurance policy? Are we good?
It's like, it definitely doesn't work in Afghanistan.
Yes.
I can promise you that. So then I flew home and packed and flew out. And Tim and I met in Atlanta, and then flew.
Did you go to the Bojangles there?
No, I'm not a big Bojangles guy.
Oh, okay.
It's a very southern thing.
Yeah, that's because you get to have it all the time.
Yeah, I'm not big on that.
Sorry for derailing this very serious topic here.
Yeah.
But on the topic of Bojangles,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No. So then we landed in UAE. We were on the ground in UAE for about 2 hours, and then we were in Afghanistan. So.
With one of the C-17s they had already promised, or did you fly commercial?
No. So the C-17s had already left with Sea Spray and Sean G. And by that point, Mercury One and Glenn Beck had donated money for 3 more planes. So we had paid for Cam Air, which is an Afghan-owned airline, and we were running some 737. So Tim and I flew over on an empty 737. So.
Okay, so you get to lay out.
We did.
Or was it first class?
There's no first class in
that's what I
Cam Air.
thought. Yeah. Okay.
No, it was just an empty plane that that had been kind of patched together because it wasn't maintained. Like the bathrooms were like overflowing. I mean, like this wasn't luxury. Let me just put it that way. But yeah, flew over and started going to work.
The pilot's like smoking a cigarette in the cockpit.
He was. Yeah.
He wasn't even in the cockpit. He's talking to these guys. Who's flying the plane?
When I finally flew back, I flew back on a 737 also, and we were trying to get as many people as possible on this thing, and so we had the hallway filled and stuff, and I was sitting leaning against the pilot's doors, and they were like, "Hey man, like just come in here with us," right? And so on my last flight back to UAE, I'm sitting up there with the pilots, and they're all smoking. And I'm not a smoker. They're all just. I mean, the whole thing was like an '80s bar, and yeah, I've got all kinds of pictures and video of these guys just like.
I thought that was only something that like Bush pilots did, you know?
No, it was hardcore. Also, a lot less respect for piloting after being up front because like the plane literally did everything.
Yeah.
Like they were just like, I mean, literally the guy at the very end was like, like a little bit, but I mean, the plane landed it. So, but yeah.
What for the C-17s? What was the highest capacity you guys flew out on one flight?
I think we had one that had like 487. That's the number that's popping in my head, but I could be off by.
So you had the load masters they're like, we can take one more.
I know that on the last flight that Tim wrote out, he was literally leaning against the ramp, if that makes sense.
It does. Yeah.
And it was just packed. So
12,000 souls saved. 19,000 you couldn't get to. Mm-hmm. Just knowing our breed, I have no doubt there was a massive feeling of accomplishment, but I guarantee you guys were focused on the 19,000 you couldn't get out.
100%. Depression? Yeah, depression, and also, without going over the top with it, people that we had been in contact with, excuse me, on WhatsApp that, we didn't get in touch with, that we weren't able to get out in time, still writing us now, still writing us today. Like, I'm trapped. I can't get out. I'm stuck. Tim got a couple where he had been trying to get to somebody, couldn't get to him for whatever reason. And, the Taliban got to them and they sent a picture of that person decapitated, and, so it's tough. It's not just, we grow up, we live in a society where like, we think things should be just, and the bad guys,
sometimes win.
Yeah. So, that's what led to all of the, the additional, missions and the, the safe houses that we built in Pakistan. And, we literally just got our last person out of Pakistan safe houses 2 weeks ago. And I was going to fly to Pakistan to pick them up. And Pakistan said, we've seen enough Nick Palmisciano here. So that didn't happen. But I picked them up in D.C. and drove them to their forever home in NC. So, yeah, it's been a ride. It has been a ride.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. What was the playlist on that car ride? Fresh from Afghanistan. Did you make them listen to
I didn't make
80s music?
I did not make them listen to
it. Should have been 80s rock. Yeah, like Welcome to America.
Welcome to America. Here's some Motley Crue. Yeah.
No. They were in a luxury bus. Oh. And I was in my my Jeep with Sean Lee.
Okay.
So Sean Lee and I were listening to 80s music. Okay. But they had their own, because it was a family.
Their first experience in America had to be at Dulles. That's a shame.
So it was the family of Sarah Verardo's husband, Michael Verardo. He's one of the most badly wounded veterans in our history. the interpreter that saved him, Johnny Rizzoli, obviously his real name isn't Johnny, but we're going to go with that, was one of the first people that was on our list to get when we were there. So we were able to get Johnny out, and credit where credit is due. We didn't get him. The Air Force guys did. But they got Johnny and his immediate family. Well, his extended family, his dad, his mom, brothers and sisters, they were being hunted as well. So we got them into Pakistan pretty quickly, but it was a much longer process to get them approved to come over. So they were this last family. And so there were a lot of, it was it was a full family. So Jack, they got the luxury bus.
Okay, all right. So they got to choose the music.
They got to choose the music. Yeah.
That's amazing, man. It's, you always talk to these high performers who do these amazing things, and the public is just like, wow, you're amazing, and rightfully so you are. But then if you dive into that guy's head or that woman's head, they're just like, all they think about is the ones they couldn't save. It's the same with vets, man.
Yeah.
Like, no vet likes the title hero, because my mind always goes back to the guys that we just didn't bring home, period.
Yep.
Like, I'm not going to pat myself on the back for being part of the GWAT. Like, it just...
Some Purple Hearts are different than others. Yeah. Not to diminish anyone, but, it's the same medal. Someone who gives all, they get the same medal as someone who takes a little shrapnel in the knee.
You read my bio, didn't you? You've just been offending me this entire, you come into my home,
I asked
Marine to Marine.
I asked Nick on the way up here. I was looking at the roster of your guests. I'm like, these are all
really impressive people.
Impressive guys who motivate people. I'm like, am I appropriate for this show? Yeah.
I don't know if I motivate anyone. We just have conversations.
Yeah, but
People listen to them, great. They don't. Hey, no, no insult.
But
here.
with people with a lot of great stories and a lot to say, including yourself, like Nick, I get why Nick's here. Like he code switches what he can go from silly comedy stuff, but he's a serious businessman too, and he saves
people's lives. Yeah,
people's
I know.
lives. Yeah, like I have nothing to offer. I was on one episode of this show.
And as you're waving your arms, I see the horrible SOI USMC tattoo.
Straight
Is it
up.
SOI?
SOI, yeah. I actually didn't get it in Oceanside, though. I got it in Venice Beach. I had family up there, so I'd go visit there on the weekend, yeah. But, yep, yeah. And with my acting, I've always thought about getting this, lasered off because it can kind of hinder, adds, extra things you got to do when you're acting. But never gotten around. Part of me doesn't want to get rid of it.
No.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
I know you've got a similar experience in the Army. SOI was like every Sunday, everyone would come back, and it was like a show of who got the worst tattoo.
Oh, yeah.
There were some horrible ones, and I'm like,
dude, I was around a bunch of my old Marine buddies. It was the first time we'd all seen each other in 20 years, and that was all we could, it was just barbed wire and tribal and old devil dog tattoos wearing out and
tramp stamps.
It was
still.
yeah.
I was 90s, so guys were still the USMC and the tramp stamp, and I'm just like, interesting location, interesting choice.
We all acknowledge wow, these have not aged well. Yeah,
but the military has gotten a lot better with tattoos.
They have. Yeah.
I mean, there's still some interesting ones, but I would love to come back on Monday, and the guys would have their sleeves another portion of their sleeve was built out, and it was just it's art.
Yeah.
It's intricate art.
There's a huge difference between the artists and the,
it's it was
old English USMC across your back.
Oh yeah, and then there's those guys that they got the Band of Brothers quote on them. We haven't even been to war yet.
Hey, you can't choose your time and go to war. The 90s, there was a lot of hard guys in the 90s that just didn't see war.
Yeah, well, that's what you guys got real good at hazing.
Oh.
Yeah, 60 minutes good. Yeah.
The only Marine tattoo was I got that one.
But that's good, though. That's
one,
good, though.
When I went to Marine OCS, because I was a sergeant, I got called to the colonel's office in OCS and got berated for that tattoo. And that, hey, you think you're special? And do you think a tattoo is representative of an officer in the United States Marine Corps? And I just had nothing to say. I didn't know where to go with that.
Yeah.
I was just like, just take your lickings, get the hell out of the colonel's office, just continue with OCS. But it's like, I love that they still come out with like the tattoo policies.
Yeah.
And I would have guys come in, they're like, I'm like, who got a new tattoo? And it was Slade, like Zombie Elvis. And I'm like, nice. I'm like, hey, you can't have those on your hands, right? And he's like, cool. Yeah. It was.
What are they going to do?
It's part of the military.
Yeah.
Like we're still talking about tattoos.
Yeah. We can't even fill the ranks. Let's be honest. Let's be honest.
Oh, the guy has a sleeve tattoo.
Yeah.
he can't come into the military. Like, no, it's like the
there
perfect
are
guy.
some rules that, like, I get it. You don't want people to come in that are morbidly obese and have a record, but there's things they can lighten up on.
Tattoos. Maybe not face tattoos.
Unless it's well done. Unless it's an art.
I mean, even then, I don't know. Do we want face tattoos? What do you think? You want face tattoos in the military?
No, I'm tattooed out. This is a.
No, I'm saying in the military. Do you think we should allow face tattoos?
I think it'd be pretty intimidating.
It would be intimidating.
Yeah.
It would be intimidating.
The neck. I'm not opposed to the neck.
Yeah.
But I just didn't care. These guys are going to war. Let them do what they can die on this next deployment. Let them do what they want.
That's a fair argument. I said no to face tattoos, but now I'm thinking about it. Like, what difference does it make?
Put it to you, like, we're not in the business of raising Boy Scouts. We're in the business of raising.
It's a violent job.
The one man who's going to go through a door who's probably going to get shot at when he enters that building.
Yeah.
I remember in the Marine Corps, like, guys had like multiple. There were sergeant majors who was like, yeah, that guy has like 9 DUIs. Now you get a DUI, you're out.
Oh yeah, my buddy who stayed in was telling me about that. Like, man, if you messed up once as a Lance Corporal, like, you're done. They don't forgive you anymore.
And now we're in a recruiting crisis.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, you've segued Save Our Allies. You guys moved quickly for North Carolina.
Yep.
Was it Florida and North Carolina, or did you guys just focus on North Carolina?
No, we went to Florida as well, but the governor there and the people of Florida are so integrated with FEMA. They know what they're doing. Everything was very quick, but also the damage, while extensive, it wasn't catastrophic. Whereas North Carolina, they're estimating that nothing like this has happened in 500 years. I mean, it is extremely rare for water to get carried in that amount, that deep away from the ocean. So, I think I think the estimate was like 4.5 trillion gallons were dumped in like 30 minutes or something.
Not conducive with mountains and.
That's right. Yeah. And so, towns in the mountains, they're all set up at the base of the mountains to, protect from weather and whatnot. And they just got washed away. Literally, some of the towns are just washed away.
I'm interested when you guys come in. Mm-hmm. What is the reception from the FEMAs and the 3-letter organizations that are there? Are they like, hey, just get out of our way, and you guys just do what you feel is right?
So we usually show up places before the government is there. No, I mean that is actually the value of our organization. Yes. So, we have Save Our Allies,
unhindered by policy, and
that's right. So whether it's Afghanistan, whether it's Pakistan, we've Gaza, Haiti, Ukraine. Like, we were in Ukraine before the war started. We're like, we know a war is coming. Like, we're looking at the maps, like, war is coming. So we had infrastructure in place before the war started. But with, what happens is a couple of things is because we, I talk about Sarah a lot, because we have Sarah who understands, from running her own nonprofit with the Independence Fund, she understands the value of integrating with government. And so, she calls it, she says the best operations are public-private partnerships. The government is never going to move as fast as a small unit can move. And so when something happens, we go immediately. Literally, we fly immediately. We send whoever we think in our close society is going to be the best for that mission. They land, they assess the situation, and we have all this, we have sat phones and we have gear, rescue gear. We like anything you can think of, we have now. So, if infrastructure is wiped out, we can still function. And they assess, they report back, okay, here's what we actually need. Here's the types of people we need. And then, we build out whatever that need is, and we get that need to the area. And so I think of us oftentimes as the stopgap between when something bad happens and when government is fully integrated. So, when they finally got cleared to come, the National Guard, I was talking to members of the Guard that, some of my West Point classmates are colonels over there. There are other guys that I just know from whatever, and they're like, hey, give us intel. Where should we be? And I was able to say, hey, these people are really screwed. This area that everybody's talking about is actually in decent shape. They can get to roads. They can get out if they want. But this grid location, this one, they're having a hard time. Here's what they need. And, so it's not, sometimes people make things combative, like, oh, FEMA is bad and we need to, we're better. We never do that. There's nobody that has more ability to help a situation than the federal government. They have limitless resources. That's never going to change. Because they're huge, they can't move as fast.
Speed.
They have processes.
Yeah.
They can't just say, screw it, like, here's some stuff, because they have to account for the stuff. Like, where did it go? Like, they have to worry about stuff like that. We don't. We get food, we get whatever, and we try to solve the problem. But if you don't integrate with the government, then you will never be as effective. And so it's just the reality of the situation.
That's a great pragmatic sort of approach. And I know it's relationship based. You guys, you probably work extremely well with them, but God, the power of, and I mean, 2 infantry guys here, the power of the private sector to just move lightning fast.
Yes.
LAR infantry. It's bastard infantry. Yeah.
For the audience,
Jack,
you want LAR?
I was in 03, yes.
Light armored.
I was at 0313, yes.
Yes. LAR stands for light armored reconnaissance. They
yeah.
they basically don't have to hump around. Walk around.
No,
you get to ride.
You get that. You missed that part of the Marine Corps, which was just fine with me.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Mike, I think we need to step in here, because if you've noticed, I've tried to compliment Jack like 6 times, and he has deflected every compliment and made it a bad thing. And I think that you should, assess him and help him in some way.
No, dude. Most high performers are self-deprecating, and you got to love
humility. It's anxiety. Yeah.
The further I get away from my career, I'm like, you know what? I just wasn't that freaking good. It's just like
100%.
One, you're armed with wisdom, and age will humble you, and you're like, damn. Yeah. And if you watch these, I always say kids, if you watch these young men and women today in the military, they're smarter, they're faster, they're more technologically advanced, they're more lethal.
Oh, I know. That's again the old, the back in my day veterans, which like I served with a lot of those guys. They're the back in my day veterans. They're like, they don't use iron sights anymore. I'm like, they're more lethal? That bothers you? It bothers you that they're better killers?
Hey, like, I like iron sights too, but they kind of suck compared to, especially now that I'm older and my vision isn't as good.
That's the generation game. That is purely.
That's all it is.
Do you remember when we came in, like the Marines in the 80s, 90s? Because you commissioned in 98, right? I came in the Marine Corps in the 98. We were just berated by them.
Yeah.
Berated, and then we did the same thing to the next generation.
Yeah, and again, I do these USO shows. I haven't done one in a while, but man, that was so great to be able to like be around troops and see them, young troops in their thing. And I remember walking away from these USO tours. I'm like, United States military is in great hands. These kids care. They they sign the dotted line. They're motivated. And actually, I did a show for a battalion of infantry Marines, and it was the worst I've ever been heckled in my life. They broke me on that stage. And I didn't tell them I had served myself. Can I tell the story real quick?
Yeah, please.
I'm in Morón, Spain. There's a infantry battalion of Marines out there that's on a Spanish Air Force base. And somebody got a DUI the day before, so of course they lock them in. They're not allowed to have alcohol. And then there's this band that's basically spending their Christmas and Thanksgiving to go entertain the troops. We show up, and these guys are just typical infantry Marines, just sitting there eyeballing us. And I had a job. I had to do like 10 minutes of stand up to juice up the band. But these guys are just like heckling and being just shitty Marines. And I'm like, I know these guys. I've been in their situation. But anyway, they broke me to where under my breath I go, there's got to be another war you guys can die in. And all of a sudden they go, yeah. I'm like, that's how I won you back. Yeah.
If that had made it onto mainstream media,
oh yeah,
you would have been canceled.
Oh yeah.
But for the
good
audience,
thing is I've never been mainstream, so yeah.
So I beg to differ. But,
Yeah.
Well, dude, yeah, what I love is you guys have both hit a significant amount of success. You're still helping human beings through Save Our Allies and even in the United States with North Carolina. But it seems like you guys will not leave the veteran community behind with all your ventures. Like whenever somebody says, well, I served 4 years or 6 years in the Marine Corps, but it's not a part of my DNA. I'm like, bullshit.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
That's why I have a hard time getting rid of this tattoo.
So what is it? What is the driver? I mean, you could, Nick and Jack, you guys could do a show completely devoid of any veteran themes. What is it that keeps you on this cause?
Money. And by the way,
if you're a veteran, go watch it.
I just need that paycheck. Yeah. Yeah. And I just know a lot of people that make that kind of stuff. And I care. Sorry, Nick.
Yeah, I feel like the Army gave me a lot more than I gave it. And then I think I was doubly blessed when people supported Ranger Up, and Jack and I have talked about this a lot. He'll probably sink this and pretend that that's not the case I'm really, like, I'm nobody special. And I really mean that. Like, I'm not looking for people to be like, no, you're, I didn't, I have friends that had, when you look at Tim Kennedy, you look at, Dakota Meyer, you look at, the incredible guys that I've been able to surround myself with and the things they've gone through. Like, I don't have that. I don't have that moment. But I've been given a lot of trust by this community. And so I always try to reciprocate that by taking the opportunities that have been given me because of their trust and make sure that I live up to the highest level of what we're supposed to be. Like, I think about that a lot. And so I feel like that's the debt that I have to repay for, the man that the Army made me and the man that really the Ranger Up fan base made me, even though I'm no longer affiliated with that. And so when I think about creative projects,
but it was a company with a fan base.
Yeah,
that's the key thing. Like,
a huge fan base.
You created a culture
Yes.
behind T-shirts. Yeah.
Whenever I think about a creative project, my rule is there will always be a character that is, that comes from a veteran background, no matter what I'm writing. So I have a movie that I've written actually about women's wrestling that I hope to go into production with soon. But the main characters in this, are veterans. And it ties in things that have happened to the veteran community. And so whether we're doing comedy or whether we're doing, serious work, I try to represent the community in a way that is different than what Hollywood does, which is they only show two types of veterans. You either have the
sad puppy dog,
he's broken, he's on drugs, alcohol, he's blown every relationship in his life, or you got Jason Statham stacking bodies like he's smoking cigarettes and it doesn't affect him and he's dropping one-liners while he cuts a dude's head off or something, Do you have any idea who this is?
Yeah.
Do you? And nothing in between. And so, I just try to, I think there is a place to tell different stories.
That's why I like being I was going to be in a creative job regardless if I had served or not. But I like that because I did, it gave me access to other veterans that are into comedy and doing creative work. And the humor that comes from the military, I've always said, Like if you're a comedy writer and if you want material for the rest of your lifetime, go spend a week with an infantry platoon and just listen to the way those people talk to each other, right? You'll have material forever. It's one of the funniest places on earth. And I'm glad that I get to be with and work with people. And you know, I'm at the point now where it's not, I get to give veteran humor to non-veterans and bring them in and how fun it can be, you know? So that's me trying to be deep.
It was very deep.
I thought it was deep.
Yeah.
See?
It was
See,
as deep as Jack can go.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, would you guys? It seems like in your service to country is beyond reproach, but you guys have done so much more out of uniform. And when I say that, like as an accolade for other veterans, like you are the epitome of service beyond the uniform for what you're doing for vets and what you're doing for mental health. I mean, you are addressing that, but I mean, do you think that's a safe statement? Would you agree with that?
I don't think either of us would be comfortable with something that strong.
Nope.
Well, then I can fucking say it.
Yeah.
You know, I do think we both have put a lot of time into trying to help veterans, you know, however we can. I think that's a fair statement. You know, one of the things that I'm heavily involved in now also, which I think is an important movement, is the American Legion's Be the One campaign. And so the Legion has basically looked at, like, what do we have that other organizations might not have access to, that we can leverage to attack not only the veteran suicide epidemic, but the national suicide epidemic. And so the Legion has 13,000 posts nationwide, which means that they are literally in everybody's community. And so instead of trying to, you know, do this very top-down thought process of like, we're going to put out all these messages about suicide prevention.
Yeah. Do these push-ups and it'll stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Understand the intent.
Yeah.
Understand the narrative behind it to galvanize an initiative, but yeah, it fell far short.
Yeah.
The only reason I never did those 22 push-ups is I'm so out of shape. I was afraid I couldn't do all 22, and then it'd be my fault if a veteran, you know.
Not representing the Marine Corps well.
Yeah.
Not representing the Marine Corps well.
Oh no, I will say this. I don't use the term I'm a Marine. I don't use that term because I respect the Marine Corps so much that I don't want to give them a bad look by telling a person that I'm a Marine. I'll say I served in the Marines. You can look at this picture. I was handsome and young. But yeah, I don't say, oh, I'm a Marine. Like,
that's my Facebook photo.
I say former, I'll say X. I'm not saying I'm a Marine. Yeah.
I used the boot camp photo when I actually had a square jaw. You know?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I feel like you still have a square jaw.
You were in like over 10 years.
20.
Well, you went to the Navy, didn't you?
So I did.
Okay. So in the Marines, I'm assuming that's about half of your...
No, so it was a little over 5, and then the remaining 15 was in
the Navy.
Yes.
Okay, but like 20 years in a military institution, you can say that stuff because you like put in like it was, you know, the majority of your life. Where it's like a guy 4 years who looks like this. You could say it because you could still put on a uniform and look good.
I disagree with that, and here's why. I think a Marine who served 2 years before he got wounded in World War II is more Marine than I was for 5 years.
Jack doesn't care about wounded World War II Marines.
Oh, yeah. I'm trying to hold in the kind of jokes I have here.
The beauty of the military and vets is if the overwhelming majority, and I think the overwhelming majority do, I mean, the Marine Corps is great at filling the funnel. It's not great at keeping people because life in the infantry is freaking hard. Like, in special operations, if we weren't staying at a Marriott, one of my guys was having a meltdown. Or even overseas, watching how you guys lived on fobs, where it stunk the entire time. Like your gym was like 2 ammo cans on a broomstick. We were staying in such luxury at some palace, some Afghani or Iraqi palace. Like that wasn't war. It was conflict, dude. And then I would come home to my grandfather, who's now no longer with us after my first Iraq deployment. He was with the first of the 501st. He was a quartermaster, but still got jump school out of it and jumped in third day of Normandy. He's like, how was it over there? Were you sleeping outside? And like, were you eating often? I couldn't tell him that we had chow halls with like Italian and Mexican and Chinese, and the little dude putting the ice cream scoop on the. I'm like, yeah, it was rough, Grandpa. I don't know what to talk about. It was real rough. No, it was good, but.
I want to finish my thought.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to finish my thought, Jack.
Jack, you are the derailer. That is your name.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. I'm just here. I go derailing. But the thing is, I'm always on like. Again, this is why I was wondering if I'm appropriate for this podcast. I'm happy to be here, but it's like I'm used to being on shows. I'm not used to someone looking me in the eye and asking me about myself. I'm used to being on shows where it's a fight between four dudes who can say the funniest thing at one time. So, and now you're like, you've done a lot for veterans. Can you tell me a little more about that? I'm like, yeah.
Well, yeah. It's, the second you walk through the door, and they only told me Nick was coming. Apparently, they just didn't feel you were important enough to tell me. No, I'm like, I've watched you on social media nonstop. In Vet TV, you worked with Vet TV?
Yeah, I did
a lot. Okay.
I did a couple shows with them. Yeah,
hilarious the content they put out, man.
Yeah, those were good years. Yeah,
but you brought up a good point, Nick, and I don't want to derail you. Of like,
I just want to finish my thought.
the amount of good times I say I don't miss the circus, I miss the clowns. Like. The guys were hilarious. One, that humor just doesn't go over well in the private sector, but I mean they were also infuriating. Yep. I mean it's a clash of A-type personalities. Bro, I miss that. That is the thing I miss, and I've just come to the conclusion we're lucky that we got that, and we're never going to be able to replace it. But we're blessed. We're the 1% that got to feel that what is a brotherhood. And a sorority in many ways, but the brotherhood. Nick, finish your thought, dude.
Anyway, like I was saying.
Did I ever tell you about the time I got Just kidding, I'm sorry.
No, I just want to finish this thought because I think a lot of people don't know it's out there. And so what the American Legion has done with the Be the One campaign is they are literally training all of their Legionnaires in kind of phases to ask the right questions to gauge where somebody is mentally. Because we all always say we're fine, no matter how bad somebody is. Like you never really know when somebody's in a truly bad place. So they've partnered with the biggest experts in the space, and they've put together almost like, think about it like they want the Legion to be the first responders in the war on suicide. So that if somebody walks through the doors and they can ask a few questions and kind of gauge like where this person needs to be. Because the idea is it's actually false that you need to wait for a professional. Everybody's always like, well, I'm not a professional, so I don't want to dive into this. But the reality is that when somebody is in that kind of terrible space, you are better off being imperfect, but be there for them than you are, worried about whether or not you're going to say the wrong thing. Because, using your words, flash to bang on suicide can be as fast as minutes. People that have not had any real desire to do that, but are undergoing a lot of stress, can go from the thought to the action in less than an hour. And so, it is important that you're there for your friends, you're there for other people, even if it might be uncomfortable. I would much rather say, Jack, are you doing okay? I'm worried about you. And
Jack, we are worried about you.
How are these things going? Than be embarrassed to maybe make him uncomfortable by asking that question, and then something happens. So,
have you talked to Dr. Chris Free? Do you know that name?
I don't.
He wrote the book, The Operator Syndrome.
Okay.
I've had meetings with him, actually. We're doing a little story on him, actually.
Oh, look at you.
Yeah.
Look at you, Jack.
That period we talked about before we went on the podcast when I was in the NBA. One of my he wasn't my commanding officer, but he was at my command, basically called me at lunch and said, hey, what the hell are you doing? I'm hearing about, you being drunk out in town, other things. And he connected me with Chris Fee, and that guy lives in Hawaii. For 3 years, got on the phone with me for about 2 to 3 hours.
Wow.
Over a 3-year period, was at my wedding. Like, he and my wife pulled me out of a hole. And he is phenomenal. And he goes into the psychology, but also the physiology of it. And I want to connect you all. I'll put you all three on an email, but worth talking to. The American Legion, I mean, his book was phenomenal. I'm trying to remember the guy who has the All Secure Foundation.
I've definitely heard of the book,
yeah.
You know, and I've heard good things about it. But
the suicide.
Unlike Jack, I'm not best friends with him.
I've had 2 meetings with him. Yeah.
Good human being.
Yeah.
Good human being. The veteran suicide thing is, I mean, having friends that took their lives and you get the call and you're like, you're just shocked. You're like, what? I talked to him last month. He was good.
Yeah.
And here's my theory, and it is a scar from the military, but how often did you hear suffer in silence? You know, you're in a push-up position, getting hazed, and you make that grunt, and they're like, suffer in silence. I've had this conversation with you know, a couple guys within my circle who I served with, and they're like, we came to the conclusion that they just don't want to be a burden on their family.
Yes.
And that's crazy that they would think that.
Yep.
And to just reach out and say, hey, man, something's not right. And they don't feel like they could reach out to guys that they served with for years, who they were next to for 8 or 12 months on a deployment.
Who always had their back every time.
And it kills me. And I'm almost to the point, is like, is this a solvable problem? And I don't want to, that's a defeatist attitude.
No. So here's another piece of information. So the Independence Fund started a thing called Project Resiliency. And what they do is, so if you think about, you know, less applicable for you, but for most people, you deploy, you come back from the deployment, and by then you're usually, you know, PCSing somewhere else. So the unit gets broken up, and now you've had those experiences, but now you're not with any of the people that you had those experiences with. So what they started doing is they took units that had significant casualties, or maybe have had, you know, multiple people take their own lives, and they bring them back together for a 5-day, you know, kind of session. Some fun, some work, some, you know, whatever, some community service. And they've been doing that now for 5 or 6 years. And nobody that has gone through the program has committed suicide.
That's
unheard of. All they've done is, and I'm not diminishing it, I'm certainly not diminishing it, but what they've done is they've allowed the opportunity to rebuild bonds that people thought were gone. So if you think about, like, you know, you left, you came back from war, you know, you got out, then you worked odd jobs. Like, did you have contact with most of the guys from your unit?
Not most, but I mean, yeah,
you had some.
Facebook was just starting to become a thing, so it was a lot easier. Yeah.
But a lot of guys didn't have that. Like, you know, they kind of disappear. They disappear back to their hometown. Maybe things aren't going well there. Maybe they're going back to a job they used to have, or maybe their family sucks. Maybe their friends suck.
Oh, that's a big thing, I think, is I came home to a good support network.
Your family's awesome.
Yeah, a lot of people don't. They went into the military to probably escape something you know, a situation at home.
And so now, you know, their friends are still in, or their friends are doing, and the perception, you know, everyone perceives, and this is just the human condition. We all perceive, like, I perceive your life is better than mine. Your life is better. You know, like, you always, like, man, I've got all these problems, but everybody does. They're all different problems, and we have highs and lows, and often these problems have nothing to do with wealth or all the things that people think are important. There's always something going on. And so when you're not in a good place, you look around and you look at social media and you're like, oh man, Jack's killing it right now. And you start feeling bad about yourself. You start thinking,
yeah, and I live in Jared's spare room.
But
Jared has a ranch, though, doesn't he?
It's a nice. Don't let him. Don't. It's a
plenty
nice
of space
place
for me to be.
Yeah,
I have a corner to myself. But yeah, it's not like we're talking about on the way up. I think people have assumed, because of people I hang out with or know, that I'm financially more well off than I am. And I'm like, no, man, I sleep in Jared's spare room. I mean, I can afford my own place, but why wouldn't I want to be there? Yeah.
Funny dude.
Yeah.
Funny dude.
Yeah. Have you been down there yet?
Yes.
Okay, great. I've been there 3 days a week for 5 years.
It was I was with Jericho and Logan.
Oh, man.
Okay.
Yeah,
But this was like 2 years ago.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember that period. Yeah. Sorry.
I like how you break it into periods.
I'm derailing. Yeah, you got to come back though. It's even compared to 2 years ago. He's got the Mark Hard gym in there. He's got. You got to come back. It's a neverland without the inappropriate touching.
It's not in San Antonio. Is it like
Just
New
outside
Brunswick?
of San Antonio?
Okay.
Yeah, a little town outside of San Antonio.
Okay.
Yeah, city's still at bay. Yeah.
Huge. The work you guys are doing, increasingly important. I always say that the further we get away from the war, society cares less about veterans. I don't know. In '98, I remember driving, I was the only one with a car. The whole thing is full of Marines all the way back, and it was a Nissan Pathfinder, like 5 guys in the back, all passed out, coming back from the bar, and we pull up to like a car full of girls, and the guy sitting in the passenger seat was also passed out, like just a handsome man. Like, the guy's just handsome. And the girls look and they're like, oh, he's cute. And they look in the car and they're like, oh, they're just Marines. Ugh. And it was just, but it was the Clinton years. Nobody cared about us back then.
Yeah.
We weren't needed, but it seems like we're heading down that same trend. And what you guys are doing is keeping sort of the veteran stories alive.
Can I interject on some?
Go ahead,
well,
Jack.
this is about your.
I'll see if I can derail it.
I don't know why I'm here, but I have had the great opportunity the last couple of years to get into behind the scenes documentary work and storytelling and more serious things, and that has. I didn't realize that was going to be such a fulfilling thing, is getting to sit down with veterans from World War II to Vietnam to GWAT era and get to hear their stories and put them out there. It's been one of the most satisfying things I've been able to do. Yeah. I was really just in my little humor arena creatively, and then getting to do that has been just like, I'm in my 40s now. I got to do big boy work. I can't just do caca poo poo pee pee all the time. So now I interview veterans and watch them talk about the most horrific days of their lives. Yeah.
And there's a legacy there. And I'm sure most of those vets talk about the guys that they lost.
Oh, can I plug something?
Hey, why don't
Jack, you're talking.
Hey.
You don't have to say this every time you come up to me.
I'm doing a feature-length documentary that's going to be released on Black Rifle's channel. It's about the 20th anniversary of Fallujah. It'll be coming out November 8th. But I'll tell you just about that. I had served with the reason why I got this thing going is because I had served with half the guys I interviewed. I didn't serve on the Fallujah deployment, but previous deployments I'd done with them. So I knew these guys, so I was able to get the ball rolling. Man, and I haven't seen a lot of these guys in 20 years. Dude, and these guys got out around that 2006, 2007, 2000, period before social media was a thing. They really just went back to their hometowns and carried on with life. And these guys haven't really gotten to talk about that battle for 20 years. And I mean, not to reveal too much, you'll see a lot of it play out on screen, but I felt like I was running a therapy session with lights and cameras. That 20 years that these guys maybe had mentioned stuff to their wives at one point, maybe they talked to another veteran who lives in town about it, but they haven't really gotten to talk in detail about their experiences during that, month-long plus battle. And so, anyways,
what's it called, Jack?
The running title is War Pigs in Fallujah. And it's about the Battle of Fallujah, but it's through the lens of one unit. And it's not to say that they were the best out there or anything, but
high casualty rate.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing. Yeah, MOUT training. Yeah, or MOUT. Yeah.
I think you should change it slightly to the War Pigs of Fallujah.
That's what I'm saying. That's why you're around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why you're paid the big bucks.
It's just a little bit.
The War Pigs of Fallujah. Actually, that is punchy as shit.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, you talk about feeling like you're sitting on the sidelines, just sitting in the States while that was going on.
The guys we talked about who did lose their lives in this, like these were guys I went to boot camp. They were there when I got shot in the arm in SOI. And yeah, being stateside and getting ready to go on my own deployment, like, hey, so-and-so got killed.
I not to diminish the guys who were there. It's almost like it's sometimes worse to be back here knowing that your boys are forward. Just the guilt and the shame.
It's definitely a different way of processing loss than being in it is hearing about it. Yeah.
That's the guiltiest I ever felt, is I found out, you're not supposed to have favorite soldiers as an officer, but I did. One of the favorite guys that I ever served with, Bill Mayer, was killed just as I was starting grad school, and that was like, what am I doing? I should have, all stupid things, as if you would have made a difference, but I should have been there. How can I be doing this? I'm drinking on a college campus when, like friends of mine are fighting and, all of that stuff. And that's one of the reasons why, and that's one of the things that's addressed in the comedy Office Joe, because all these things are things that I think everybody goes through, and so, yeah. Natural pause. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that is a natural, good human sort of reflection. Period. Is just in the fact that you bring up, I probably wouldn't have changed a single thing if I was there. Like probably wouldn't have been able to save him, but at least I would have been there with him.
Yeah.
In his final moments. Yeah, I've definitely felt that. We are facing a massive recruiting crisis. Mm-hmm. What do you guys say to the younger generation about who may be on the fence of whether to join the military or not?
Oh, yeah, let me go on a little rant here, all right? All right. Do you want to go to college and get your education and be around a bunch of members of the opposite sex with all the alcohol and drugs and fun stuff you can indulge in? Or do you want to go get yelled at by a 24-year-old drill sergeant? But the good news is, compared to college, you'll have way better stories coming out of the military.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
But I'll tell you this, every time, I would get letters when I was over in Iraq where I missed, 4th of July in Lake Tahoe or something. The guys are like, it was the best party ever. And I'm sitting in Ramadi. I'm like, oh, I didn't miss a fucking thing. I did not miss a thing.
Bro,
trust me.
You're going to look back on that time in Ramadi more fondly than them looking back on a party in Tahoe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, everything good comes from suffering. I really believe that. There's nothing that I've ever done in my life that is meaningful past a couple of weeks that didn't involve significant suffering. And the military will give you that.
Almost like it's a designed, deliberate process.
And that's what I do. I'd say to people who are doing the back in my day thing when they don't like change that happens in the military. I'm like, that institution's moving on without you. It doesn't need you. You were good for it for the time period you were there.
It's true.
Yeah.
The finger in the bucket of water, pull it out. That's how how long they'll remember you. But that's the long gray line, dude. Not to steal a line from the West Point. It's just, that's a military.
But the best part, like everything in the looking back on it is like, oh, it's cool. I got to fire weapons that I would not have access to now, and I got to do some cool things. But the only thing that really ever truly came out of it was like, hey, 20 years later, I'm having a reunion with dudes that I served with, and just feeling young again, and I still have people that I love from that period,
And you don't get that from a frat. You don't get that from college. You don't get that from any company you've worked in.
No.
Yeah, maybe there's that one or two people that are close friends. You just never have that.
Yeah, and a lot of couches I could crash on back when I was trying to be a writer before Nick hired me. Yeah. That came in handy, those relationships.
I think I would love to get drunk with you. I bet it would be nonstop laughter.
No, it's not. That's when I really calm the F down. Yeah.
The opposite.
That's alcohol's purpose for me, is to bring me down and take away the energy.
Well, I wish you would have taken a few drinks before you came up. Guys, yes, this podcast dives into just the warrior mindset and leadership and culture and high-performing teams, and we have fun with it because I'm just fascinated with performance, high performance, waiting to attain that level. But I'm giving a speech, and the reason I can't be at your event, your premiere in Austin on Thursday, is months out, they asked me to come speak to a Navy Marine Corps ball, which you're very well familiar with, to all the ROTC units.
That's an honor, man. That's so cool you get to do that.
But I haven't orchestrated my speech yet. And one of the best sort of opportunities I got was to speak to 700 Marines. Will was with me, finishing up the 2 weeks of basically an FTX at Bridgeport. And I was the last speaker before them, and their 2 beers and steak. Mm-hmm. But just to be able to speak to them, and I was struggling with what do I want to tell these young warriors that can maybe maturate them or help them reflect on their time and how good they actually have it, how they're blessed. But what would you say to young officers on leadership and who are about to, they're going into the Navy, don't crash your ship. I don't know what the Navy does outside of special operations, but there's going to be Marine Corps officers.
This is an easy one for me because it's something my dad told me. He's a enlisted Vietnam vet. Before as I was getting commissioned, he just said, "Are you gonna ruin this?"
I'm not. I just want to say Nick's not one of those guys that calls himself Italian, but he's like 5th generation Chicago guy. Is like great grandpa. Nick's dad is from Italy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He's like a real Italian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He just said that as you become an officer, there are going to be a lot of people that they're going to try to bend you to, how they think or what they need you to do. It's going to be very political. But your decision making will be a lot easier if you just remember that everybody is going to be a civilian at some point, whether you're going to do it in 5 years or 20 years, and don't make any decision for rank that you can't sleep well with every night. So go to bed feeling good about your decisions, and if that means you don't make colonel, that's okay. And so that made my career, not that it was some long, incredible career or anything, but it just made it very easy to not worry about pissing off the old man because this is the right thing to do, or pissing off the, so I thought that was incredibly valuable, and it let me feel good about everything that I did.
So that was your sort of anchor point?
100%. Yeah, I'd rather get fired than say yes to some bullshit that was going to put my guys in a bad situation, that was going to, where I'm lying to them knowing that I don't believe it. I don't, and I'm not talking about like you get a mission and you don't like the mission. Yeah, you got to do it sometimes. I'm talking about, the people. I'll give you an example. I won't say his name, but I don't mind throwing this guy under the bus. I showed up at my first unit, got assigned as to 2nd Platoon, Bravo Company 136, and I was supposed to shadow for a couple weeks, and then I was going to become the platoon leader. So I'm stuck in the talk, and this soldier came in, and he was an E6, and he went up to my company commander and was like, "Hey, sir, I just found out my mom is dying, and I would like to fly home, to see my mom." Well, we were in the middle of gunnery. This was with Bradley's, and he was like the best TC, BC. And the company commander right in front of me says, "Listen, you're not a doctor, you're not a nurse, there's nothing you can do for your mom, but you can help your squad max gunnery." And he leaves, and I have not been there for 24 hours, and I'm like, you know, sir, like, he needs to go see his mom, like, and he pushed back on me, and I was like, sir, I'm literally going to go to the battalion commander. Like, that's going to be my first move, because this is insane. And it ended up coming to a head, and he did get to go, and that was how I started my lieutenant time.
Behind the eight ball. After
Right
that,
behind
probably.
the eight ball, yeah.
You're your future company commander.
Yeah.
So, you know, there is no deficit of physical courage in the military,
So,
but what lacks in our officer corps is the moral courage to stand against the grain and actually do the right fucking thing. And that goes all the way to the Pentagon.
There's a lot of great officers, and there are a lot of not great officers.
Once an Eagle. Have you ever read that?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Yeah. That should be mandatory reading for all young officers. Jack, I mean, you like me, were on the enlisted side, man. What was it about the best officers or senior enlisted that you would recommend to these kids or give them advice?
To a young officer or
Young future officer.
Oh, I like what you said about your dad saying that they're all going to be civilians someday. That's really
He's
good.
a wise man.
Yeah, you know what's crazy, and I'm going to take my best crack at this, but like I haven't really had to think about that stuff in a long time because I've been so far removed in the daily grind of military life. But I will bounce off of what Nick said. I was recently in Southern California, like a bunch of old officers that I served with, and being first name basis with them now and everything like that. That buddy up thing is like, look, you can't you can't fraternize, you can't be inappropriate, but you can be friendly. Like you can treat them, not as a subordinate, but as someone who
As a human,
and one day that you might want to have a beer with. You can't do it right now, but treat them as someone. I basically just stole from your dad.
That's it. I do it all the time.
Yeah.
So,
I probably broke that rule.
Yeah.
I probably broke that rule, and it doesn't bother me. And I don't think it compromised my ability to go against the platoon and be like, no, you all want to go left. I hear you. We're going right.
Yeah. By the way, if you're in a professional organization, they're still going to do what they're told.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've always thought about it like rank doesn't make you better. It just gives you different responsibility.
Competency knows no rank.
Yeah. Like if you're the platoon leader, your responsibility is to make certain decisions, to do certain parts of the planning process, but that doesn't make you better than the machine gunner. Like you both have a responsibility to do your jobs in an excellent manner. Just because you happen to be the one that is in charge of more people, it's because you elected to make choices to put yourself in charge of more people. It doesn't mean that you're better than these people. And for some people that's a subtle thing, but I think it's important. I think it's really important.
Unless you graduated from West Point,
then you're just automatically better than everybody. That's what it means. Yeah, just instantly better than everybody.
It's just one big communications degree. Just learn how to give speech.
Hey, I can give a speech on anything for any reason.
Yeah.
Oh God, I hated the pre-combat speeches. Like, don't need this. Get out of the way.
Like, there's not a screenwriter here that's jotting this down for a film. You can really condense this if you want. Yeah.
Well, fellas, anything else you want to cover? I mean, we're gonna close out on Office Joe.
We could talk about Office Joe.
Yeah, let's
we
go
could
deeper.
talk about the last 2 years of my life.
Are you wore out by this point?
No, I'm super. Right now, I'm in that I'm super excited that it's finally coming out. I'm also anxious because every time I do anything meaningful, I assume catastrophic failure and no one's gonna like it. Jack watched the whole thing for the first time last night because he hadn't seen the whole thing yet. He liked it, so that's at least one person.
I watched my episode.
You watched your episode before. I set all the episodes.
How many episodes?
6 episodes, about 40 minutes each.
Okay, perfect length.
It's about for most shows are 22 minutes, so it's kind of like a equivalent to having 12 episodes worth of content, but it's basically 6 storylines. So
for the majority of the society who did not join the military, this is going to be hilarious for them.
Totally approachable. You do not it is not like Range 15, which was very focused on the
Yeah,
military
STD
audience.
jokes at Fort Bragg.
This is extremely approachable. The test audiences that we showed it to at, first were all completely civilian, and the reactions were all really positive. So I am confident that anybody can watch this and enjoy it. But it's really about it's about transition. That's and everybody goes through a transition, even if you're not a vet. Whether you're talking about career change, leaving college, divorce, whatever. We all deal with it, and that's fundamentally what it's about. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I think one of the endearing things I found about Joe, the protagonist, is he's a likable guy.
Yep.
Him being a veteran is having a hard time. He doesn't take it out on anybody else. He just he internalizes it. He's got his mentor that he goes to, your character, but he's still a good guy around the op. He doesn't act better because he's a veteran.
Maybe he should. No, I'm just saying.
No, there's enough of those guys.
And I think I saw one clip. Tim Kennedy's wearing about a 500-pound suit.
No, he went method. He actually gained 500 pounds.
Good on him. That's impossible. Have you ever worked out with that motherfucker?
Yes. Yeah. So I cornered him in the UFC and MMA for like 12 years. And so there were many times where he hurt everybody around him, all of his training partners, because he used to get so amped up before fights. And for some reason, like, I would never get hurt. So it'd be like, instead of like 5 rounds, but like I'd be one of the rounds, it was like, hey, you're all 5 rounds. And in case you were wondering, he's better at fighting than I am.
I would hope.
And it was unpleasant. It was unpleasant.
I worked out with him. There's a glassware company.
Yeah.
Over here. I'm forgetting the name.
Yeah.
Great glasses.
Roca. Yeah.
It had to be about 3 months ago. Worked out with them.
Was Shane there?
Shane was there.
Yeah, Shane is another monster.
Oh, these guys are the physical phenomena. But I had to fly
and
the next day.
Shane's older than us.
Doesn't look it.
I know.
Doesn't look it.
Shane's older than us by a couple of years.
I had to fly the next day, and I don't know how I got my carry on into the case, but something about sitting in the seat it was going to New York. It was like 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
When it was time to get off, I'm trying to get my arms up, and the woman next to me, she's like, "Do you need help?" And I'm like, "Yes, ma'am."
Oh my God.
I was in so much pain. I couldn't get my lats whatever the workout was. I couldn't get them like past here.
Yeah.
And I was so embarrassed. And I'm like, you know what?
No, it's always terrible.
I'm like,
and like the warm up is
a workout.
It's a workout. It's like, okay, the warm up's done, and I'm like, just miserable. Yeah.
So of course you got Jack, you've got yourself, you've got Jared Taylor, you've got Tim Kennedy. Who else is?
Austin Von Letkeman, Mandatory Fun Day. He was
hilarious.
He was phenomenal. And him and Jared.
Man, the way that guy delivers lines is just
it's
everything.
Awesome.
And he got cleared by the Army?
Yeah.
Because he's still active, right?
He's still active.
Okay.
So he and Jared play recruiters that are right next door to the marketing company that Joe is at. And so they're always up to something, trying to recruit them, but usually just arguing about stupid stuff. They played off each other great. Tim plays an evil executive. Jack plays a bigwig.
Yeah. Cocky guy.
Ashley Gutermuth, if you know who she is. So Ashley, she plays a local anchor and local news anchor. She's fantastic. Eric Tansey, who's a police officer and comedian. He's got a book coming out that I wrote with him called Pig Latin. So that's coming out in August. And Jack Rea, he's on Instagram as What's Good Media, but he's an EMT influencer. Hilarious. So we kind of have like a who's who of people across like the
Mary Dagg.
Mary Dagg is amazing. Do you know who Mary is?
No. I may recognize her
great.
face. Yeah.
So
bad with names, great with faces.
She was an EOD tech that lost both of her arms below the elbow, in her words, poorly defusing a bomb. And she's actually like an incredible actress. So she was in Range 15, and then she was on Mayans FC, and she's done some other things. But anyway, I asked her if she wanted to be a part of this, and she was like, only if it's interesting. That's always what she says. It's got to be something interesting. So we made her a gang leader, and you could argue that her episode is the best. She's fantastic. So that was so she runs a gang of printers.
Yeah. You got a massive following. I mean, this crew has got a massive following.
Tim definitely helps the bell curve on that. Yeah. In Austin.
It's a great group of people. And the regular actors that are about a 50-50 mix of veterans and non-veterans that maybe people don't know about were incredibly talented. Like we really lucked out. It came together. Like, Ross Patterson always says, there's the show you write, the show you shoot, and the show you edit, and they're all different shows. And I was hopeful that I wrote a good show. I felt like it was a pretty good show, but the performance that everybody gave really took it to another level. And I think we have a good show. I think people are going to enjoy it. I think the veteran community will love it, but I think people in general will have fun with it. Would
there be a season 2 if they say it's with a...
I already have it mapped out. So unless, if like 3 people buy it, then probably not. I'll just be sad for a while. But the plan is as long as it does okay, season 2's coming, because I really enjoyed it. And I enjoyed spending time with everybody. And, all of the actors have already kind of said, hey, in season 2, I could do this or I could do that. And they're already planning their future. So, Jared is Austin and I could have a spinoff, and he's already thinking like a recruiter's show. So, I'm always up for doing stuff with these guys.
Would be an amazing, concept for a sitcom, a show about recruiters. Yeah.
That's what I do for a living, executive search, placing vets.
Yeah.
It's a racket. It's also a grind. But how long did the shooting take?
Just shy of a month. So we shot it pretty fast. But that was because I'm telling you, and Jared Taylor and I were talking about this yesterday. There's a huge difference between the way Hollywood does things and the way we do things.
Dude, that set the precedent for me of all the work I've done since when we did Range 15. We were doing those 12-hour, really 14-hour days. I didn't know that wasn't normal.
Break this down for me. The difference between.
So, in Hollywood, there is a person responsible for every little thing. It's you can't touch the blah, blah, blah.
So much waste.
Unless this person says it's okay.
Is this also unions or
it has a lot to do with that.
There's unions, but not all of this is a union issue. There are, I do think there are things where the unions make a huge difference. You probably shouldn't be able to do crazy stunts without somebody that knows the safety protocols, right? That makes sense, But when it's you can't feed people, in this manner unless you X, Y, and Z.
If you don't have a line, you have to go sit over there. If you have a line, you sit over there.
So it's fiefdoms. You've just got all these fiefdoms.
Yeah. On the set of Range 15, we made a decision. Day 1, they tried to feed all of the extras pizza while everybody else was eating great food, and we were we don't do that here.
Yeah,
and they were
hey, these people funded our movie, so yeah.
And they were well, that's going to cost you an extra, $70,000 or something. And we're well, that's what we're doing. So things like that that were, but anyway, kind of going back to the core thing is we are very organized. There is a plan. There is a timeline. There are, there is a structure to everything that's going to happen. And we don't spend time, with little speeches and talking about everything. It's we met in advance with all the actors. We did the read-throughs. I set expectations hey, this is an indie show. You've got to show up knowing your lines. Don't show up learning your lines on the fly. You've got to, you have to be thinking through these things. Like, we talked through all that. Everyone showed up prepared. So it wasn't a situation where it was like, man, we're just fighting through the day hoping to capture it. It was, hey, we got it. We got it on the first or second try, and now you guys get to play. Now we can say, Jack, do whatever you want on this one. So some of the stuff in the show I didn't write, like Jack just went ham and some of it was great. Or, Tim went ham and some of it was great. And those are the things that can really take a show from like good to great. But you can only do that if people are prepared. And so everything just moved with kind of military efficiency instead of the pomp and circumstance that kind of goes along with Hollywood. And so if you look at, looking at what Black Rifle does, they produce things. I guarantee that if Hollywood was making some of the products that they made, they would cost 3 to 4 times as much as what it takes, Jack, Jared, et cetera, to put together, because they create cost, if that makes sense.
It does.
They create middlemen. They create all these things, It was like with Office Joe, it was like, hey, we could build this whole set. I was like, or we'll just use our office and everyone can work from home for a month.
Yeah.
Oh,
we won't have carpenters on the credits. Whoa.
How about shooting? I mean, in Hollywood, do they have like 8-hour caps? After 8 hours, you got to cut the people away. Did you guys go longer?
After 8 hours, you got to pay them 50% more. So we didn't really have that, but we actually hit all of our days but one. We only had one day that went long, and it was like a host of things that happened. But because we were on every other day, that like everyone was like, it happens. Like there was no negativity. But we were very fortunate. We hit all of our days. But that comes from like we were planning. We didn't try to bite off more than we could chew and try to create like, we're going to get everything done in a day. And everybody was prepared.
Now in Hollywood, I've heard, people do their scenes. They go off to their respective trailers.
Yeah.
It's very insular. There's got to be a camaraderie amongst this ragtag.
Indie sets are way better because I've done both sides. I've been on the Warner Bros. Productions, and
we get it, Jack. You're a big deal.
No, I had like.
Don't try to walk it back
one
now.
page.
Don't try to walk it back now.
No,
Jack.
I thought you were going to say fluffer or something like that.
No, yeah. No, but it's like, it's very corporate. It's very sterile. It's very to show up, do my stuff and leave. But indie sets are where you build great camaraderie. You pal around. The crew and the cast are tighter. And it's less transactional and more of like, we're on an artistic endeavor we're on a team. That's what I love about being on film sets. It's honestly the only other place I've ever seen, and that's why I just wanted to come out and do Office Joe. Like I just wanted to come out and work with Nick again. It's the only place I've ever seen since I've been out of the military that comes close to mimicking the kind of atmosphere of the military that especially if you're on a good set where everybody like wants to make the movie. It's like that team-oriented attitude, whether you're hair and makeup or an actor or a grip or whatever. Like if everybody's on board with a project, it feels good.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like the military, if somebody doesn't do their job, everyone knows.
Especially on indie sets.
Everyone knows,
Or if somebody's acting a diva,
Yeah.
they'll get they'll feel the peer pressure real quick.
Yeah. And that's not I wouldn't put up with that. That's not a thing that I'm up for at all.
But that's also the cast of characters you
I would
yourself
literally, we talked about this because there was, we had one incident and it was so minor, but I was like, I will literally replace this person with somebody of a completely different sex and race and just say, the character of so-and-so was replaced with this because they were a jerk, and like from then on out, it'd be like an Asian woman playing like Jack's role or something. Like, I don't care, man.
Wait, I wasn't the problem, was I?
No,
thank God.
No, but I'm saying like, I don't care.
Were there, did he have any diva director moments?
No. I mean, I only did one episode, so
you were around for a while though.
Yeah, I stuck around for a few days just to hang out.
And eat the food.
And
I'm
always there for free.
So much craft service.
Yeah, I'm always there for the free meal.
You were our Ron Jeremy.
Yeah, just hanging out for the free food. Yeah.
How was I? Yeah, you can.
No, it was great. No, you did a great job. I mean, we'd been making those silly videos together for years, so that was, and obviously like Range 15 was very hands-on, but that was my first time seeing you like in a peer director role.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it's like you've been doing it as much as you have for over a decade. Like you knew what needed to be done. And
it was different though. Like being the actual director with like the professional crew, and I did feel the pressure at first.
Yeah, it's the shit. I've done music videos and stuff.
Yeah.
It's the worst job on set. It's the most stressful job on set
because you just want to make sure you see the right
thing.
You got to see the right picture in that.
You're balancing timelines and all sorts of stuff. Yeah, it's the most stressful job on set. Being a director.
But I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you did a great job.
Yeah. I don't think I got mad at it. I think I got spicy one day, but it was just like me and Hollywood both trying to get
inevitable.
And we walked outside and
it's inevitable.
He's an Air Force pilot, in his 60s, spent 20 some odd years in Hollywood. He's like the man, and he and I work together on everything now. And so we can get spicy with each other. But that was like, that's friends saying like, hey, let's go outside and yell at each other for a second.
Yes.
But not to any of the actors.
Yeah. Well, I found in my experience, and this goes whether you're on a bigger set or making a stupid little internet video or whatever, like a lot of the times when you want to talk about ego and diva-ness, a lot of the times it's not even the actors, it's like camera people. In my experience,
camera people
can be the biggest divas.
Yeah.
Just
because they're passionate about, they want to,
super passionate.
And a director needs to keep time, and they're juggling, a lot of important stuff, and the camera guy, they just care about their job. They don't even give a shit about performance. They only care about their one little thing, and they can hold things up, and they can be difficult. I'm not saying all of them. Yeah, but
I did not have that issue.
I didn't sense it on your set.
Yeah,
no.
Steve Lemieux was our DP, and I said, hey, here's our timeline. I'm going to give you a few moments in the show to make it beautiful, but the rest of the time, like, you got to capture. You got to do the best you can with lighting, and you got to capture. And like, so like the final episode, the sparkly with Christmas scene where you see like
those are
Ashley
really
Marie through the window and stuff. That was like a moment where I was like,
They're
okay.
artists.
I was like, hey, you can make this as pretty as you want. And he got his like hour to kind of, but the rest of the time it was like punch in fast.
Yeah. Yeah. But they're and I don't come from, I don't have a camera back. I'm not a camera guy. I've worked around them, but like camera people, they process their canvas a lot different. It's easy to explain what an actor does. Everybody sees what an actor does, or a painter or a writer. You see, man, camera people are the only ones that really understand like what they're looking at.
Yep. Yeah.
Now is DOD, does DOD assist? You've got Austin, you've got Tim, massive followings yourselves.
They should. DOD should be, to be super honest, DOD should hire Dieseljack Media to help them recruit, because
without a doubt,
I can tell you that we have significantly helped a number of organizations increase membership, and we understand. What are you excited about?
I'll hold it. I'll cap it.
But DOD should definitely reach out to us and people like us to help recruit, because big organizations, the ones that they hire, actually don't know how to do this. And they are not ever going to be willing to take the micro risks necessary to actually, get in touch with the people that will be effective soldiers or sailors or Marines. And apparently, Space Force exists now.
Mm-hmm. I know nothing about Space Force.
I've seen a couple of them now in real life, and
those uniforms are awful.
I still don't
awful.
I still don't believe they're
like real. What is it that you guys do?
I think they will eventually be really important.
I have no doubt.
50
years from now.
My way, the way I'm boosting Air Force recruiting is being stolen valor. I've been doing stolen valor on this Air Force unit for about 4 years now. They gave me one of their hats when I was doing one of those USO shows. And I was like, cool, thanks. And I wore it when I was back in the States. And everybody kept asking me, are you Red Horse? Are you Red Horse? I'm like, eventually I just started saying yes. And then I went on podcasts and started telling people that I was doing this Red Horse Stolen Valor. And then all these Red Horse guys started sending me all T-shirts and hats. So they were encouraging me to do the Stolen Valor. So now, as cool as it is that you're speaking at the Marine Corps Ball, which would be a dream of mine as an actual former Marine, I think it'd be even cooler if I got invited to speak at a Red Horse Ball because they like the kind of because I dedicated myself to that Stolen Valor so well.
Give it time.
Okay.
Give it time. I guarantee you'll be getting a call. But Nick, to your point, we actually spoke to TRADOC about this because I guess that's where the budget and the initiative is controlled. And we spoke to mostly senior enlisted who were like right on because we had said something on Fox News about outcome-based recruiting.
Yep.
About highlighting a guy like you and what you have become because of your time in the military. And they loved it. Red tape. And that was it. And it was because we had Legacy Studios, which was in support of Legacy Expeditions. You're 100% right. Why wouldn't you give it to an organization that understands that actually wore the uniform?
Yeah.
That's government. Yeah. That's government. For better or for worse.
I will say, whoever the heck was making commercials for the Marines in the 80s and 90s,
hire that guy.
Yes, hire that agency.
The Dragon.
Oh my God.
Well, the greatest.
I still play that
sometimes. I play that stuff, and I'm a 40-year-old man who hasn't been in the military.
And you know better.
I get chills when I watch.
You're in the marketing business, and you're still. I know what they're doing, but I still like it.
I'm going to pull it out, but eventually hang it on the wall. But the greatest advertisement, and you probably remember this one, you may have remembered it, was a Marine drill instructor right in the face of a recruit, and it says, "We don't promise you a rose garden."
Yeah, that's from like the
United States Marine Corps.
Yeah.
And that was, that's iconic.
Yeah.
Iconic. And then there was the Marine, real, like, built, handsome dude with the cami paint on who got kicked out of the Marine Corps for steroids. But
yeah. I think that happened, like, right when I was coming in. That was all the scuttlebutt.
I have to say, kicking people out for steroids is dumb. I mean, and I'm not a steroid guy. I've never used or anything. But, like, I feel like they are endangering themselves in order to be better at their jobs.
So this goes back to the tattoos.
Yeah.
It's, again, these guys are going downrange against somebody who will cut their head off.
Yeah.
If they want to have peak performance, I'm not opposed to it. And in fact, you can control it. I mean, they started, like, even issuing testosterone to soldiers, which I think they do now.
Yep.
It was the worst program. There was so much, like, the medical, medical commands didn't want it. And you had guys who were 27 whose testosterone was in the tank.
Yep.
Like, the guy needs it, and he'll perform better. Yeah. It makes no sense, man. But that's the military for you.
Yeah. Or we could just, just give them meth.
Go the Hitler route.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just get them all cracked out.
Get them really amped out. I mean, that's a lot of Americans, but I'm on meth, so I'm going to make that
just
charge.
have some Marines tweaking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ready to charge Fallujah.
Yeah.
Probably not the best practice.
Yeah. Well, meth maybe that's just a West Virginia National Guard. Who knows? Yeah.
Well, there was, there was a fatality at Bud's because the young man was on steroids and his organs were 3 times the size of.
Oh, wow.
We were talking, we're like, did you guys ever consider using steroids in Buds? Like, our whole we're like, no. It's actually not the tool you'd want to use where cardio is your primary goal. Insane. But no, I'm with you on that one. If it lubricates their joints, if it helps them perform, I'd rather have the military control it. They probably do a horrible job than the guy go to Tijuana and get some vial with a horse on it.
Yeah, that's literally my first. I wrote stories about funny stuff that happened in the Marine Corps. That's one of the first stories I ever wrote was getting in a high-speed chase in Tijuana, going to pick up some steroids for the company before deployment. Yeah.
Marines.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Well, guys, so Office Joe will be out on November 8th on Amazon.
Amazon, iTunes, and Google Play.
Okay.
So it's for sale on all of those. November 8th. You can also get it, believe it or not, on Blu-ray and DVD.
Jesus, going old school.
Yeah.
Hey, there's still 15 to 20% of people that prefer to have Blu-ray. So
That's insane.
yeah. So,
Go where the market is.
And the quality's better.
Yeah, I'd assume so.
So you can do that at officejoeshow.com.
We are going to drop all those links. I'm excited to watch this thing. I mean, based off the content you guys have put out, it's going to be a gold mine. Now we need the 85 million followers on Sports Illustrated to go at least, just make a purchase, dude. Support some vets. These guys are supporting vets.
Nick's going to be like, did you watch the show? I'm like, no, what happened? He's like, man, they cut you out, dude. Yeah. Yeah.
But brother's only half the word.
Yeah.
Well, Jack, Nick, I can't thank you guys enough for joining me. Congrats on all the successes. And thank you for what you're doing with Save Our Allies. That's insane.
Well, thanks for having us on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially Jack.
And we'll do something right after this for Austin. Let's get those 50 remaining tickets sold.
Awesome.
Yeah, cool. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.